This is Zoe reading Sonnet 12. Pardon the deadness of my voice, but we make do with what we've got. When I do count the clock that tells the time, and see the brave day sunk in hideous night, when I behold the violet past prime, and sable curls all silvered o'er with white, when lofty trees I see barren of leaves, which erst from heat did canopy the herd, and summer's green all girded up in sheaves, borne on the bier with white and bristly beard, then of thy beauty do I question make, that thou among the wastes of time must go, since sweets and beauties do themselves forsake, and die as fast as they see others grow, and nothing 'gainst time's scythe can make defence, save breed to brave him when he takes thee hence.
Now that we've read the sonnet, and thank you, Zoe, we can begin to try and understand it just a little bit more. So in line 4, the sable curls. Sable is the color black used in the context of heraldry, which is in making coats of arms. And the sable curls refers to someone's hair. And it being silver dower with white means that their hair is getting older and becoming whiter. Erst means formerly, and canopy is used as a verb to cover or shelter the herd. The sheaves refer to bundles of wheat or barley, and the summer's green is crop of that wheat or barley going into the sheaves. Bier is a movable frame on which a coffin or corpse is placed before a barrier, typically, but it also used to be used to refer to a wagon, which the sheaves would be on. And then moving on to the rhyme scheme, it follows the typical Shakespearean structure for sonnets being AB, AB, CD, CD, EF, EF, and GG, with the rhymes being time, prime, night, white in the first quatrain, leaves, sheaves, herd, and beard. Now these are near rhymes, so they don't have to all be perfect. Make, forsake, go, and grow for the third quatrain, and defense, hence for the final couplet. Moving on to the poetic devices, I really wish I had more colors to highlight more things, but I think it is busy enough as it is. So following just the normal sonnet structure, there is an alternating rhyme scheme and iambic pentameter. Anaphora is present all throughout, and it really does a lot, and especially the repetition of when at the beginning of lines 1, 3, and 5 just kind of reinforces this idea that time passing is inevitable. And then the ands that follow each of those whens kind of contribute to this idea of the change and decay, which will come after that passage of time. Also, the anaphora does help to create some rhythm, but it does mainly serve just to establish the themes of time and decay. And moving on to alliteration, it really is adding emphasis to a lot of the decay. So, for example, the wilting flower is past prime, the aging hair is sable curls, all silver dower, and then with white. The consonants and assonants both serve largely the same purpose, and just for a little definition, the consonants is the repetition of similar sounding consonants, and assonance is the repetition of similar sounding vowels. Both of these just kind of help to create a flowing rhythm. Really, all three create a flowing rhythm for the sonnet and add emphasis on time passing and causing decay. Then, in addition, I couldn't really highlight it, but in the first line, count the clock that tells the time. This kind of repetition of T, the consonants, almost makes like a ticking, which indicates more of that time is passing. More subtly later, the alliteration links breed and brave together, highlighting kind of how this idea of procreation, being breed, is the only defense that one can face or have, which would be to brave against time. And then moving on to Sinalifa, this is kind of where Shakespeare just gets to flex on us a little bit as he makes his own word, being silver dower, combining a couple of different words with apostrophes, and this does a couple of things, but one is just it maintains the sonnet's very strict syllable structure and keeps it flowing and moving. And then it also allows for this alliteration I went over earlier with sable that wouldn't be really easily possible otherwise. And then caesura is really just any break or pause, and it can be just a natural shift in syntax, just how you read it, or it can be marked by punctuation. One example is after the consonants of brave and day, there's a natural pause, and that creates kind of the stronger gap between these positive connotations of having this brave day next to it being sunk in this hideous night. So it just highlights that. In time for the figurative language portion. There's too much going on here, so I actually kind of gave up on color coding it. But anyways, the imagery helps the reader to kind of visualize time's decay with the image of a wilting flower, hair getting whiter, and leaves falling from trees. And it's kind of present all throughout. And then additionally, time is present all throughout, and it's personified as a figure. And it's especially clear in line 13 as time wields a scythe. And this is also a double entendre because in personifying time wielding a scythe, it symbolizes kind of both like time as the Grim Reaper and as Father Time, which is just an allusion to mythology, as both of these characters have scythe. And this personification of death and the passage of time are both key themes throughout. Another double entendre hinting at death we defined earlier with beer. As it is used in this context, it would just mean like the wagon to load the cheese into, but we know that it's more often used to refer to the frame or coffin that transports the corpse to its eventual burial. And given, the context of the whole sonnet and not just the line, it's tough to say that this, reference to death wasn't intentional. And there are lots of metaphors present, but really the whole entire sonnet kind of is a metaphor as it compares the, big relationship between time, death, and even beauty. And then lastly, there's a simile in line 12, which kind of denotes this idea that our existence is kind of cyclical as the creation is proportional to its destruction, being die as fast as they see others grow.
So for the problem in Sonnet 12, the main issue that is identified within the sonnet is how time causes different changes and it sort of naturally progresses. And this definitely presents a bit of a problem because these changes can sometimes be very tragic and inconvenient. In the sonnet, some examples of this are seen in lines 3 and lines 4. So in line 3, when I behold the violet past prime, this is basically talking about how with time natural beauties like flowers sort of just fade and become old. And then in line 4, it discusses sable curls all silvered over with white, so talking about how age affects hair color. And then elaborating on the problem, so in lines 5 through 12, a lot of the situations that the speaker describes are typically references to nature, and nature presents a huge theme in the sonnet. Some examples include trees losing their leaves and the summer crops as they're being transported. So with nature causing these changes, it's sort of a repetitive cycle. The speaker also uses the imagery of nature and connects it to how a person's beauty will change as they age. And this comparison of nature to a person's beauty reflects a feeling of wistfulness and inevitability. And then lastly, we have the rhyming couplet, which are the last two lines. And the rhyming couplet is supposed to present a solution to the problem. So the speaker admits that time, like as a problem, literally cannot be defeated, and it's sort of inevitable, especially the concept of death that's very much cannot be stopped. However, the speaker also claims that it's important to leave a lasting legacy behind, which especially includes giving way to the new generations after an individual dies, and this is sort of a hopeful and spiteful response to time and the death that it eventually causes.
This is Zoe back for the final slide of this presentation. Hopefully you've enjoyed it so far. I know you've really just been waiting for me to come back. What we've got here is this crazy skeleton with a scythe being pulled on some sort of war chariot, just casually mowing down the masses. I'm not quite sure where my colleagues found this image, but it's a good one for this, because skeletons wielding scythes, you might immediately think of figures like the Grim Reaper, who's kind of more of an allusion to this Greek figure called Kronos, who's not quite a god, but he's kind of the main boss of time. And he's really famous for his scythe, and so like the time and the scythes that's been carried on over the years, and Shakespeare would have been well aware of that when he was writing his sonnet, and so there's a lot of allusions to scythe wielding time. It's kind of like harvesting your age, and these guys are clearly being harvested, although maybe not for age. And I am sure the Latin at the bottom has more to say on this, but I didn't take Latin because I don't take classes in dead languages, so Nevertheless, it's pretty clear that all these guys are trying to get away from the skeleton, and this one's just having a walk in the park. Like, they aren't gonna make it. So, like the sonnet, it's pretty much whoever you choose to face the weird time dude wielding pointy weapons, that's up to you, because the outcome's going to be the same. And that's kind of what Shakespeare's been trying to communicate. It's just, no matter what skills you've got, life is temporary, so just choose to make an impact. And that will be concluding this presentation. Thanks for listening, and have a good day.